next scene we see is Flock arriving at Hydra Island, with Widmore's crew greeting him with some missed bullets. They walk down the shore on either side of the sonic fence they set up, knowing it can't cross to the other side, and arrive at Widmore himself. The Man in Black and Widmore introduce themselves sarcastically, and the Man in Black says he wants Jin back, to which Widmore proclaims he has no idea who Jin is. The Man in Black knows he's lying and says to him, "A wise man once said that war is coming to this island. I think it just got here." And if you remember, the wise man that the Man in Black is saying is actually referring to Widmore himself when he says that exact same quote to Locke off the island in season 5. Sometime later when Widmore is back inside the sub, he asks Zoe to get the package and bring it to the infirmary. Jin comes in and Widmore introduces himself to him. He gives Jin a camera that he found in Sun's luggage on the Ajira plane. The camera has a bunch of pictures of Ji-yeon, his daughter that he's never seen before, with Sun. Widmore says that he has a daughter too and knows what it's like to be separated from her, but he tells Jin that if that thing, referring to the Man in Black / Flock, ever got off the island, everything he knows and loves would simply cease to exist. Now what does Widmore mean by if the Man in Black leaves, everything will simply cease to exist? Well, I think it means either one of two things. Either the two timelines we know of now will merge, or the Flash Sideways timeline will take over, ending the original timeline they're in now. And if the second idea is true, that the Flash Sideways would become the only reality, then Widmore would be telling the truth, saying that everything would perish. It would essentially end the timeline they're in now. It would be as if they never even existed. Widmore knows about the other timeline and that he's alive in it. And even though it's still Charles Widmore in that timeline, it would end his personal conscious self in this timeline. That's why he doesn't want Flock to leave, so everything won't die and vanish and change. We don't know how that would happen yet, but I think it somehow involves the electromagnetism or the force or energy of the island. And also the fact that Jacob manipulated the original timeline, and now with him dead, the Man in Black would make it so that timeline would never even be. And like I said before, another idea is that if the Man in Black left the island, the two timelines would actually merge, and if they did merge, it could be somewhat similar to Doc Ray's body from the freighter. Remember, washed up on the shore before he was even killed or thrown overboard. We see examples of this all in the Flash Sideways, when the Losties look at themselves in the mirror, having deja vu moments, and when they see another Lostie and seem to recognize them. Also in the literal sense with Jack, seeing the same scars appear that he had in the original timeline. In between the two ideas, I'm leaning more towards the first one I talked about, where the Flash Sideways timeline would actually end the original timeline. Like Widmore said, it would simply cease to be, indicating the timeline they're in now. Widmore claims that he came to the island to prevent that from happening. Jin wants to know how he's going to do that, and Widmore tells him that it's time for him to see the package, saying the package is a who and not a what. Back on the beach at night, Flock walks back into camp and tells Sawyer that he knows that they have Jin. Sawyer asks where Sayid is, and Flock replies that he doesn't like secrets, asking Sawyer about the locked door on the submarine. We go to Sayid, who emerges from the water near the docks like some sea serpent, appearing like he wasn't even breathing, and watches as Zoe and Seamus carry some drugged up guy down the docks. They accidentally drop him at the edge of the docks, and it turns out to be Desmond, looking right at Sayid. How Zoe and Seamus didn't see Sayid, especially when they leaned over to pick Desmond up, who knows? Okay, over the next few minutes, I'm going to be talking all about Desmond, how he's involved with the ending of the show, how he might bring down the Man in Black. Ever since the Flashes Before Your Eyes episode, if you go back and watch it, you can see that Desmond's probably going to become the biggest player in Lost. Now I'm going to talk about different ideas, including a great theory from Kane on Dark UFO's Lost site. And for this theory to work, we have to assume that there's not just one alternate timeline, but an infinite amount of alternate realities parallel in time to the reality on the island. So not another timeline, but another reality. The big question this episode is, why is Desmond the package? How is he going to be able to stop the Man in Black and prevent him from leaving the island? Well, what if it all has to do with Desmond turning the failsafe key back in Season 2 in the hatch? This theory goes that when Desmond turns the key, what if he actually is flashing to the alternate reality? We see this all throughout the episode in Flashes Before Your Eyes. He starts off by waking up on the floor of his studio. He isn't going back in time because he doesn't remember turning the failsafe key a few seconds earlier. Instead, he's flashing to the alternate timeline that we've seen throughout the season. We see all the characters look in the mirrors and have a sense of deja vu, having memories and small flashes of their life in the original timeline on the island. The same thing could have been happening to Desmond in Flashes Before Your Eyes. He sees Penny in the alternate timeline and he gets all confused but happy. But when she said that if he doesn't get her dad's approval, it wouldn't be the end of the world, he gets that deja vu sense again of pushing the button to save the world and flashes back. We see a bunch of other examples of this deja vu flashing throughout the episode back and forth. We also see it with the soccer match ending differently than he remembers in the original timeline, just slightly different, like how things are slightly different with every character in the Flash Sideways reality. But when Desmond sees Charlie playing the guitar in the street, he remembers everything about the original timeline and the island, and he knows Charlie's name. He tells Charlie that he remembers Widmore kicking him out and him seeing Charlie in a different alternate reality, then it raining. And once he tells this to Charlie, it begins to rain. This shows that it's not a different timeline, but in fact an alternate reality. Events are different, but the realities are following the exact same timeline in both realities. The key to this whole thing, and the reason that Widmore needs Desmond to somehow take down the Man in Black, is that the alternate reality Desmond and the original island Desmond somehow cross realities, with each having a little bit of the other's memory and knowledge. Maybe the Man in Black can only end this reality if everyone is in their own separate realities, and with Desmond here being a cross between the two, maybe he can't end it. Who knows? Now, like I was saying earlier, there could be more than two realities, even an infinite amount of realities, and Jacob could be manipulating each one to try to improve it each time. Maybe every timeline he works on could somehow improve the chances and the factors of having everyone he wants get to the island and somehow getting the ending that he wants. It could have taken thousands of realities to have everyone that he wants to get to the island actually arrive there, and this would happen by slowly over time tweaking each reality. Kane made a great comparison to it being like video games, and more specifically Mario. You as the player would represent Jacob, and Mario would represent any character Jacob's trying to manipulate into coming to the island and doing what he wants. The end goal of the flag that Mario's trying to reach represents Jacob's goal of getting that person to the island and doing his will. When you first play the game, you might run into an enemy and die. So that time, or in that alternate reality, Mario dies. But you have an infinite amount of attempts to play the game. So the next time you know to make Mario not run into the enemy, but rather jump on top of it. Mario would be experiencing that as if it were the first time, but you as the player, aka Jacob, would have already experienced that before in a different reality. Mario always starts over without any knowledge, but you as the player, you start over in a way, but you have the knowledge of that level and your mistakes. So after a bunch of attempts, you get it right, you finally finish the first level, then the second, and get to the last level eventually. There's an end to this game. Like Jacob tells the Man in Black, it only ends once, and the rest is just progress. Very similar to this idea. Let's pretend there's no save points, so every time you died you'd have to start over from the very beginning. Well, because you've done it so much, you could just fly right through the levels, knowing how to do everything to get to the point where Mario just died. Every time you start over, Mario is experiencing that for the first time, like Jack, Kate, Sawyer, and all of those guys. But Desmond's different. He's the Mario that remembers the previous times. And we don't know why yet, but it probably has to do with turning the failsafe key. This is why everything's happening for a reason on the island and also off the island, as Locke once said, and as Jack is starting to believe now. And as Kane mentions, this theory also goes with the movie Groundhog Day, if you've ever seen it, where each day Bill Murray relives the same previous day and knows what to expect each time and how to make progress to do what he wants. This is a really good theory, and if you ever have time, I really suggest reading the whole thing. Also, if you have time, I really suggest watching the Flashes Before Your Eyes episode, as it'll help you understand a lot more about this theory. So how can Desmond actually stop the Man in Black? Well, we don't really know yet, but I'm hoping we find out next episode when it is Desmond's episode. Whatever it is though, it has something to do with Desmond being caught up somehow in both realities. One more quick point is that another idea is that there's only two realities, with the alternate timeline and the original reality, and the Desmonds in those realities switch places actually when Desmond turns the failsafe key. Alright, time for this week's version of Gus's photo hunt. Wow, we actually have a first in these recaps. No one figured out what scene this little picture of sand belonged to, not like I really expected anyone to. So for the first time, I've been doing these recaps, I'm going to add a second part to this picture, and here it is. If you can figure it out, the only way to win, to get the prize, is to post a video response with the answer, so good luck this time. Okay, now for the unanswered questions of this episode. I only have two. The first one is, how do you think Desmond will be able to stop the Man in Black? And second, what do you think will happen if the Man in Black leaves the island? If you guys have an idea, or if you want to share your theories with everyone else watching these videos, let us all know down in the comments section. Okay everyone, that is it for me. I'm sorry this video is being posted on Monday at probably around 9-ish or something at night. I usually try to get these up on Sunday, but like I said in previous recaps, sometimes they'll be up a day later. It's just busy with Easter and everything. So hopefully for next week, since I have the week off, I can try to get that one up earlier, maybe a day earlier. No promises though. Anyways, next week's episode is the Desmond one. It's called Happily Ever After. I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully you guys subscribe to these to get these videos automatically. I will see you next week then, maybe on Saturday night, and God bless.